The year was 1518. It was a very hot summer in the city of Strasbourg. Life was difficult for many people. But one day, something very strange started. A woman named Frau Trophia walked out of her house. She stepped onto a small street and began to dance. There was no music, no one was with her. She just danced by herself. Her dancing was not happy. She did not smile. Her face looked worried and full of pain. Her arms and legs moved in a wild way. It seemed she did not want to dance, but her body could not stop. She danced all day and all night. One day passed, and then another. She danced for almost a whole week. She did not eat or sleep. Her feet were red and hurt from the hard street. Her body was weak and very tired. But still she continued to dance. People in the city watched her. At first they were curious, but soon they became afraid. Why was this woman dancing like this? Was she sick? Then this strange event became a city problem. After 1 week, more people started to dance. About 30 others joined Frau Trophia. They also danced without stopping. They looked very tired and unhappy. This was only the start. Soon, hundreds of people were dancing in the streets. They moved without any control. It was a scary thing to see. This was the beginning of the dancing plague. It is a mystery that historians still study today. What made these people dance until they died? 2. The dancing spreads. Frau Trophia was not alone for long. After a few days of her strange, endless dance, other people started to join her. First, it was just 1 or 2 people from the crowd that watched her. Then a few more. Within a week, a small group became a large one. More than 30 people, mostly women, were now dancing in the streets of Strasbourg. Like Frau Trophia, they could not stop. This was not a happy party. The new dancers looked just as tired and scared as the first woman. They moved their bodies in a wild, uncontrolled way. They jumped and turned without any music to guide them. Their faces showed pain and confusion, but they continued to dance. They did not seem to hear anyone who tried to speak to them. It was like they were in their own world of frantic movement. The sickness spread quickly through the city. People watched with growing alarm and did not understand. They saw their own neighbors and friends join the dance. It felt like a disease that you could catch just by seeing it. The streets, once busy with markets and daily life, were now stages for this frightening performance. Children were told to stay inside their homes. People were afraid to walk through the main squares where the dancers gathered. By the end of July, the number of dancers grew to about 100 people, but it did not stop there. By late August, the situation was a terrible disaster. Around 400 men, women, and young people were now part of the dancing plague. They moved through the city day and night. The dancers were everywhere, in the squares, on narrow streets, and even inside private homes. The city was in a panic. The strange sickness was a crisis that was getting bigger every day. The people who were not sick felt helpless and terrified. They saw the dancers get weaker and weaker. Some dancers fell down from exhaustion, their bodies completely tired. But after a short rest on the ground, they would get up and start to dance again. Their feet were bleeding and their clothes were torn. The leaders of Strasbourg knew they had to do something, but nobody knew what was causing this terrible dancing sickness. 3. A strange cure. The leaders of Strasbourg were very worried. Hundreds of people were now dancing in the streets, and they could not stop. The city council needed to do something. They asked the city's best doctors for help. The doctors watched the dancers carefully. After thinking about it, they made a decision. They said the dancing was not a supernatural problem. They said it was a natural disease caused by hot blood. This was a common medical idea at the time. The doctors believed the dancers' blood was too hot, and this made their brains and bodies act strangely. Their idea for a cure was even stranger. To get better, the doctors said, the people needed to dance more. They believed constant dancing would make the sick people sweat out the sickness and cool their hot blood. The city leaders trusted their doctors and agreed to the plan. So they prepared the city for more dancing. They cleared large areas for people to dance, like the grain market. They even built a big wooden stage in a public square. To encourage the dancing, they hired professional musicians. The sound of pipes and drums filled the city day and night. They also paid healthy people to dance with the sick ones to keep them moving. But the plan was a terrible failure. The endless dancing did not cure anyone. The hot summer sun and the non-stop movement were too much. Dancers became completely exhausted. Many fell and never got up again. They died from heart attacks, strokes, and from being too tired. At the worst point, up to 15 people died each day. The leader's strange cure was making the sickness much worse. 4. A saint's curse. The city leaders saw their big plan was a terrible failure. Building stages and hiring musicians did not help the dancers get better. In fact, the problem became much worse. At the height of the plague, as many as 15 people died every day. They died from heart attacks, strokes, or because their bodies were just too tired to continue. The leaders and doctors were very scared. They knew their medical idea of hot blood was completely wrong. They needed a new solution, and they needed it quickly. They stopped thinking about medical causes. They changed their minds completely and decided the dancing was a supernatural punishment. They believed a powerful saint was angry with the people of Strasbourg. This saint's name was Saint Vitus. In those days, it was a common belief that saints could heal people, but they could also send a curse to punish them for bad behavior. The leaders announced to everyone that the city was suffering from the curse of Saint Vitus. Since the problem was now seen as religious, the solution had to be religious too. The city council made new, strict rules for everyone. They immediately banned all public dancing and all music. The musicians were told to go home, and the wooden stages were taken down. The city became quiet. They also banned games and other activities they thought were sinful. They wanted to show Saint Vitus that the people were truly sorry and wanted his forgiveness. The most important part of this new plan was a journey. The city's officials gathered all the sick dancers together. It was a very sad and difficult task. The dancers were weak and their feet were bleeding, but they could not control their bodies. They were carefully put into wagons and taken on a long trip to a shrine high up in the mountains. A shrine is a special, holy place for prayer. This shrine was dedicated to Saint Vitus, the saint they believed was causing the curse. At the holy shrine, the dancers took part in a religious ceremony. They were given red shoes to wear and small statues to hold. They were led into a special cave where they walked around a holy altar. They made offerings and prayed for help. They begged Saint Vitus to forgive them and lift his terrible curse so they could finally stop dancing and rest. Everyone hoped this new plan would work where medicine had failed. 5. Not the first time. The dancing problem in Strasbourg in 1518 was shocking, but it was not a new problem. This strange sickness happened before in other parts of Europe. For hundreds of years, between the 14th and 17th centuries, there were several of these dancing plagues. One of the biggest dancing plagues happened in 1374. This was more than 100 years before the events in Strasbourg. It started in the town of Aachen in Germany. From there, the sickness spread to many other towns along the Rhine River, like Cologne and Metz. In this plague, thousands of people danced wildly in the streets. They could not control their bodies and seemed to be in a trance. They jumped and shouted, and some said they had strange visions. The dancing continued for days or weeks. After 1374, about 10 more major outbreaks happened. Most of these events were in the same part of Europe, in the areas around the Rhine and Mosel rivers. This shows a clear pattern. The problem was not random. It was something that happened again and again in this region. Some cities experienced the dancing plague more than once. Strasbourg itself had smaller dancing events after 1518. Other cities, like Trier and Zurich, also had multiple outbreaks. This history shows that the dancing in Strasbourg was not a unique event. It was part of a bigger, older mystery that affected communities for centuries. When Frau Trophia started dancing, the people of Strasbourg may have been scared. But the idea of a dancing plague was not completely new to them. 6. Bad food or bad minds. For centuries, people have asked a simple question. Why did the people of Strasbourg dance? Scientists and historians have looked for answers. They have two main ideas. The first idea is about bad food. The second idea is about troubled minds. One popular theory is about a sickness called ergotism. This sickness comes from a fungus that can grow on rye. Rye was a grain used to make bread, especially for poor people. If people ate bread with this fungus, they could become very sick. The fungus has strong chemicals in it. These chemicals can make muscles shake and move without control. They can also make people see things that are not really there. This sounds a little like the dancing plague. But most experts now think this is not the right answer. Ergotism is a very painful sickness. It usually makes people too weak and tired to move much. The dancers in Strasbourg danced for days. Someone with ergotism would probably be too ill to do this. Also, if the bread was bad, we would expect whole families to get sick together. But this did not always happen. So, if it was not bad food, what was it? A second, more likely theory is about the mind. This idea is called mass psychogenic illness or mass hysteria. This is a real condition. It happens when a person or group is under extreme stress. Their minds are so full of fear and worry that their bodies start to show real physical symptoms. The sickness is real, but its cause is psychological, not physical. It can spread quickly through a community. One person shows a strange behavior, and others who see it become so anxious that they start to do it too. It spreads through shared fear. The people of Strasbourg were living with terrible stress. This theory suggests that their minds caused their bodies to react in this strange way. The dancing was an outward sign of their inner suffering. 7. A very hard life. To understand the dancing plague, we must first understand the world of the people in Strasbourg in 1518. Their lives were not easy. In fact, their lives were very, very hard. The city was a place of extreme stress, suffering, and fear. This difficult life is the main reason why the strange dancing started. The people were living through a terrible time, and their minds and bodies were at their limit. The problem started with food. For many years before 1518, there was not enough to eat. The weather was very bad. Hot summers destroyed the crops in the fields, and long, cold winters made things worse. The year 1517 was especially bad. People called it the bad year. A great famine spread across the land. This meant that many people were very hungry for a long time. They were malnourished and weak. Children were left in orphanages because their parents could not feed them. This constant hunger created a lot of anxiety and desperation in the city. Sickness was also a big problem. Disease was everywhere in Strasbourg. There were frightening new illnesses like syphilis. People did not understand this disease and were terrified of it. Old diseases that people knew and feared, like smallpox and the plague, also returned. In 1517, a different sickness called the English sweat arrived. It made people sweat a lot, and they often died very quickly. The hospitals were full of sick and dying people. People felt helpless because doctors could not stop the diseases. They prayed for help, but the sickness continued. Life was also very unfair. There was a big difference between the rich and the poor. Rich landlords made new rules and took more money from poor farm workers. Peasants could no longer hunt or fish freely to get food for their families. Many people lost their homes and had no money. They were angry with the rich nobles and church leaders who seemed to have a lot of food and money. This anger and feeling of injustice added to the stress that everyone felt. People felt trapped by their situation. So, the people of Strasbourg lived with terrible pressure. They had hunger, sickness, and poverty all at the same time. All this stress was too much for their minds and bodies. At that time, they also had a very strong cultural belief. They believed that a saint called Saint Vitus could punish people. They thought his punishment, or curse, was to make people dance without stopping. This belief was very real to them. When people are under extreme stress, their minds look for an explanation for their suffering. For the people of Strasbourg, the curse of Saint Vitus was that explanation. This situation created a perfect storm. The people were at their breaking point. Their minds were full of fear, and their bodies were weak from hunger and disease. When the first woman started to dance, it was like a spark. Others saw her, and their own deep fear took over. Their brains, under so much pressure, used the idea of the curse to express their suffering. They did not decide to dance. Their minds caused their bodies to react in the way a cursed person would. The dancing plague was not caused by poison. It was caused by the heavy weight of a very hard life. 8. What we learned. So, what did we learn from this strange history? The dancing plague of 1518 was not caused by just one thing. There was no special poison in the food or a single disease. Instead, it was a mix of different, serious problems happening at the same time. The people of Strasbourg lived a very hard life. For many years, there was not enough food to eat because of famine. Many people were also sick from terrible diseases. This made everyone feel very stressed, sad, and afraid for their future. This deep, constant stress was the first important part of the puzzle. The second part was what people believed. In the year 1518, people had very strong religious beliefs. They believed that saints could give blessings, but they could also give curses. A saint named Saint Vitus was known for this. People believed he could punish you by making you dance uncontrollably. So, when Frau Trophia started dancing, people did not think it was a medical problem. They thought it was the curse of Saint Vitus. This powerful idea spread through the city. When other people saw the dancers, their own fear made them believe they were cursed too. The dancing spread like a fire from one person to another. This story teaches us a very important lesson about the connection between the mind and the body. The extreme stress and deep fear in people's minds caused a real physical reaction. They did not want to dance, but they could not stop. Their belief in the curse was so strong that it took control of their bodies. They danced for days without rest or food until they collapsed. It is a powerful example of how our thoughts and feelings can have a real effect on our physical health. In the end, the dancing plague is a reminder of how societies can react in bizarre ways during times of crisis. When an entire community is under extreme pressure, strange social events can happen. It is a sad story about fear, strong beliefs, and the amazing power of the human mind. After hearing this story, what do you think is the biggest lesson we can learn from the dancing plague?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.